So today, it's an interesting time because we live in an era where we're supposed to choose between the two things you see behind me. Are you on the side of science or on the side of tradition? When you think about your health, your knowledge, or your worldview, people are constantly asking you this question. But the thing it always comes back to for me is, do you trust the data, which comes from the laboratory, or do you trust the wisdom that's been passed down from millennia to now? We're always pressured to pick a side as if these two realms are exclusive enemies. But I don't think they are, and that's what I want to talk about today. Several years ago, a personal crisis made me hit this exact wall. I was an expat living in China, where I've been living and working for 17 years, and I was mentally exhausted because I was dealing with a nagging and chronic lower back injury that just wouldn't heal. And I tried every standard Western medical approach I knew of. I got MRIs, I did x-rays, I tried all these different things, but nothing worked. And that was until a local friend took me to try something that seemed completely absurd. Standing in front of this large panel that was emitting intense, bright red light. And what baffled me even more was her explanation. She used a phrase that's deeply rooted in traditional Chinese medicine, which I hadn't heard until that time, which is 行气活血,童子不痛. Has anyone heard that? You can raise your hand. So in English, this roughly means it is moving your qi and it's invigorating your blood, and where there is flow, there is no pain. And so for me as a Westerner, my logic-driven brain sounded the alarm. This sounded completely unscientific. But the result was, it worked. I was shocked. And so this pushed me into a deeper dilemma because my body was healing, but my framework for understanding the world itself was collapsing. And I couldn't accept that something I deemed unscientific was actually producing a scientific outcome in my own body. And so I had to figure out, was this just some sort of placebo illusion, or was it the key that was capable of unlocking a door I had never seen before? So I began to explore, but my goal was not to prove whether red light therapy was effective. My goal was to understand a paradigm, which is, how is it possible that ancient Eastern concepts and a modern Western therapy point to the exact same conclusion? It was really confusing for me. So I started to dig into peer-reviewed medical journals, and I found my first signpost. I discovered photobiology research, originally funded by NASA for astronauts in the 1990s. And there was published studies in clinical laser medicine that showed how specific wavelengths of red light radically accelerated tissue repair at the cellular level. I started reading about ATP, which we heard about from Alan earlier today, the fundamental biochemical energy currency of the cell. And then there was an aha moment that struck me when I was reading these papers. What if the qi that had been flowing through Chinese medicine for thousands of years is simply an ancient interpretation of ATP, the microscopic energy that drives all of life's activities? Now, way back then, they didn't have electron microscopes, but with astonishing observational power, they perceived the existence and the blockage of this core life force. So things started getting interesting. So next, I needed to understand this other expression my friend had said, 活血. Again, as a Westerner, very unfamiliar, invigorating the blood. And this led me to my second signpost, the 1998 Nobel Prize in Medicine that was awarded for the discovery of nitric oxide and how it acts as a signal to allow your blood vessels to dilate. Now, modern physics shows us that the red light can trigger the release of nitric oxide at a cellular level. And suddenly, 活血, invigorating the blood, was no longer a vague, mystical metaphor, but it became a precise, measurable, physiological process. Two worlds, two sets of vocabulary. One speaks of qi and xue, qi and blood, and the other speaks of ATP and nitric oxide. But during the healing of my lower back, somehow these two different worlds converged. And so this brings me to the core idea I want to share with you today. We often believe that different wisdom traditions are arguing with each other. I don't think that's true. More often than not, they're actually more like translating between one another. They're different dictionaries. One is a dictionary of philosophy and macroscopic experience, and the other is a dictionary of chemistry and microphysics. But what they're trying to describe is actually the exact same thing. This incredibly complex reality of the human body, and the exact same universal desire for human health and vitality. So in 1962, this is one of my favorite quotes. The Chinese leader Deng Xiaoping quoted a famous proverb: 不管黑猫白猫，捉到老鼠就是好猫. I don't know if anyone's heard this one before. You can raise your hand if you have. So it doesn't matter whether the cat is black or white, as long as it can catch the mouse. It can still qualify as a good cat. And this is frequently interpreted at the time as a call for economic pragmatism. But I believe it represents something deeper, a deeper wisdom, which is a pragmatism of how we perceive the world. It demands we stop fighting about the color of the cat, whether it's the cute white cat or the black cat. And it's more about the origin of knowledge or the cultural packaging of the method. And so we should instead focus on the function of the cat. Does it help us to solve and understand real human problems? This is what I call cognitive pragmatism. So look around you. Look around in Shenzhen. The youngest generation in China today naturally inhabits this wisdom. By day, they're programming AI algorithms with OpenClaw. They're adhering to ancient dietary wisdom by night. They're tracking their biometrics meticulously in the gym and then going for gua sha, scraping treatments to alleviate muscle soreness. So they don't obsess over where these answers come from or whose answer this is. The only thing these people care about is this a good answer? Is this going to be able to solve my problem? So I stand here today not to sell you on a specific type of light, nor to blindly defend an ancient tradition. I'm here to invite you to become a cognitive pragmatist. And the next time you're faced with a seemingly contradictory choice, whether it is about health, whether it is about education, or the broader path of your life, please don't rush to ask, is this an Eastern tradition or a Western tradition? Is this idea Western or modern or old or new? I suggest you try asking a different question, which are both of these using different languages trying to tell me the exact same important truth. Because some truths require a 2,000-year wait, things like the invention of the electron microscope and the discovery of a Nobel Prize, just so we can finally translate between those two languages. But the truth about flow, about energy, about the endless renewal of life, your body, and all the ancient minds we talked about today that sought true understanding, they actually knew it all along. Thank you guys very much. I appreciate your time.